Hey F1 fans, I just want to say, how usually I say towards the end of the championship, there aren't too many changes in the standings. Well, since we waited three races, okay, because that's how it's going these days with long breaks and triple headers, there are a lot of changes. So let's go ahead and take a look. It's a cool one. So, welcome to another episode of Who Moved Up and Who Moved Down, where we take a look at the Constructor and Driver Championships changes that took place over the last few Formula One races. Let's take a look. Yeah, so now not only has McLaren overtaken Red Bull, or should we say Max Verstappen, in the Team's Championship, but also Ferrari has overtaken Red Bull. And let's see, we've got only a difference of 13 points though. So I guess it's possible if the Ferraris mess up some more that maybe that gap can be reclosed again. And if Sergio really picks it up and comes in with a lot of points over the next few races. So we've had two teams moving down. RBs, yep, they've just really been struggling, even though they've swapped out Daniel Ricciardo for Liam Lawson. And the Williams had some terrible crashes, especially in the last race. Yeah, so they, not surprisingly, are moving down. While Alpine, as we know, they both finished in the podium in the last race, which is insane. So suddenly they jumped the queue ahead of everybody, and they are now tied with Haas, but ahead of Haas because of the higher finishing positions. So there's our little zero there. Wow. And of course, the rest of the teams, no movements. That's cool. Yeah, just glancing at them there. Haas and Alpine may get change places. The others, they're probably where they are going to stay. So even though it's close to the end, wow, that's a lot of shuffling that we've had in the last three races. Let's take a look at the drivers now. Wow, so George and Hamilton switched places at long last. Because Hamilton got a really good start, but now George is making do with the car that they have, and Hamilton really struggling. So George got a P6, P5, P4 across the three races. In Texas, he recovered from a pit lane start due to car repairs after a crash in qualifying and climbed to sixth, but he also received a 5-second penalty for forcing Bottas off the track. He had in Mexico a good battle with Hamilton in the closing stages of the race, but couldn't fend off his teammate and finished fifth, where Hamilton got P4. And finally, in Brazil, he took the lead from Lando Norris at the race start, but was caught out by being one of the cars that pitted during the virtual safety car. So lost his lead position. He still recovered to fourth place by the end. So way to go, George. But Lewis unfortunately spun off early in the race in Texas. Um, he did really well in Mexico and stayed ahead of Verstappen in the closing laps as well. And then in Brazil, just had a really difficult car and a difficult start, but held off Perez to finish in 10th place for the final point. So Alex Albon finished P16 and then DNF and DNF. In Mexico, his race ended on the first lap following a collision with Yuki Tsunoda, and both drivers had to retire immediately. And then in Brazil, it was super rainy in quali. My God, there was so much drama in that quali. Like there were 5 red flags. And also the time changed, but the time didn't change in Brazil. So we actually missed half of quali and then joined in and watched the beginning a little bit later. But yeah, Albon crashed out in Q3. So because of the rain, quali was actually rained out and had to be done Sunday morning. And because of that, there wasn't enough time to actually fix the car in time for the race after his crash in Q3. So that's why he was completely out. And then we have Ollie Behrman, of course, fair enough. He moves down a bit. He raced instead of Kevin Magnussen, and he didn't finish in points. He got a P12 there. So he just sinks down a little bit because some others moved up. Then we have some drivers that moved down. Let's see. So Stroll, my gosh, not much to report except he had a really horrible braking failure, I guess. I haven't actually researched it during the formation lap in Brazil. So that just was very unlucky. It caused all kinds of, false starts and things in the race. But yeah, he was out right from the start. But, this is also on him. It's one thing going off because of your brakes, but it's another thing then subsequently driving into the gravel and beaching your car and being out of the race. Because if he hadn't driven into the gravel, he would have just been able to continue. So Lance got a P15, P11, and DNF. So really 0 points. And our next swap is we have Magnussen and Ocon switch places. Kevin Magnussen finished P11 and P7 with Ollie Behrman racing in his stead in Brazil with P12. So he got some points and moved ahead of some of the less fortunate drivers around him. Esteban Ocon finished P18, P13, and P2. I mean, wow, what a fantastic outcome for Alpine, for both Gasly and Ocon there. They basically got qualified quite well. So they were near the top as people started pitting. And then they decided not to pit during there was a virtual safety car and a safety car and a red flag, and they did not pit. So they managed to actually get a free pit stop during the red flag and keep their positions out front, with only Max getting ahead of them by the end of the race. So yeah, way to go, Ocon. And also nice to see both of those drivers, Ocon and Gasly, finally showing their camaraderie and sharing those memories of how they raced as kids in the rain and in the snow and in the freezing cold. Because they were quite against each other this season, taking each other out a few times. It was not nice, but it's nice to see them reconciled and really, really happy. The whole team is so happy because they've been struggling. And next, we've got a few drivers that moved up. Yeah, so Yuki Tsunoda got a P14, and then nothing in the middle race in Mexico. He retired on the opening lap after that collision with Albon, but had a really good race in Brazil to take P7. Gasly finished P12, P10, and P3. So there's that awesome Alpine podium there again. And yeah, it was pretty tight from Russell trying to take third place towards the end, but Gasly managed to fend him off. I know the race didn't really focus on showing them, but the few glimpses we got, that was pretty tight. And yeah, good on you, Pierre Gasly. And then Franco Colapinto, one of our new drivers, is P10, P12, and then he DNF'd as well. He crashed heavily on lap 32. He was the one who brought out the red flag that turned the race around for so many. And he gains 1 point in the championship. Then we have all the other drivers who didn't change places. I just wanted to quickly talk about, of course, our championship contenders. Max finished P3, P6, and P1 for his first victory in, I think they said 10 races. It's been a tough slog for Red Bull, and it really hasn't worked out for Sergio, but Max continued to do damage limitation, and I don't need to reiterate what a superstar race that was. They got really unlucky in qualifying in Brazil, so he had to start in P17, plus taking a penalty for his engine, and then got lucky, on the other hand, with the red flag during the race, just crunched through the pack, just was able to have more grip and do more with his car than anybody else. Even Piastri, from McLaren, he said when Max just went past him, he said there was nothing I could do. I just didn't have the grip in the car, and he somehow did. And that's pretty much how it went. And also, he had a good straight line speed, good braking, even in spite of the rain, and more grip than anyone else in the corners. And somehow really good tire management too. It actually helped them because he didn't make Q3 in qualification, which means they had more tires. Not that he changed them a lot of times, but they were younger than some of the other people had to start out. Gosh, I mean, it seemed pretty dire because, I'm a Max fan. So it seemed pretty dire in Mexico when he received those two 10-second penalties. I mean, okay, he behaved like a completely erratic um, road rage driver. It might have been calculated, which is a bit like, okay, that's a little bit borderline. But yeah, he literally drove Lando off the track on one of them, although one of them could have been argued. And yeah, a lot of people did argue that he shouldn't have gotten 10 seconds for the first one. But it is what it is. So two 10-second penalties, and he still managed to finish at P6. So he was concerned about the car's performance still, because P6 was the best they could do. But still, I mean, that's really good for damage limitation when you have 20 seconds of a penalty. And of course, at P3 in Texas, this time Norris being the one to get penalized with a 5-second penalty. Lando Norris, our second place contender for the championship, with still 62 points between them and only 3 races and a sprint race to go. Lando Norris finishing in P4, P2, and P6. I mean, across the top, but no P1s. He lost his lead in Texas because he had to race with Verstappen, and then this allowed Leclerc to just pass both of them at the beginning of the race. So that was kind of sad. And he finally managed to overtake Max later in the race, but that's when he was deemed to get that 5-second penalty. So yeah, P4 there. And then that's when Saints got a really hugely great race in Mexico. So Lando could not pass him, although he almost caught up to him. And people were saying this was actually what Max was trying to achieve when he ran both of them off the track, is to set back Lando enough so that Lando could not get a P1. And I guess if that's what he was trying to do, it worked. He got a P2 there. Yeah, I guess I'm going to join all the voices that are saying, no fair Lando, calling the Max victory in Brazil just luck, no talent. Yeah, that was a little bit unfair. There was a lot of talent, there was a lot of rain. It was extremely bad conditions for everybody, and it was not easy. And you basically had to make no mistakes, no running off the track like Lando did, good starts many times, and just being ready to jump on any and every opportunity that presented itself with good strategy calls and staying calm, which is a hell of a lot more than luck and no talent. It's actually very much the talent of a world champion. And I am convinced at this point that Max will have it. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll stop there on the drivers. Just want to say though, let's look at the gaps. So we've already talked about the 62-second gap on between Lando and Max. So that's gonna be real hard. Probably Leclerc will not catch Lando, although it's possible. Lando would have to really mess up and Leclerc do well consistently. This is too big of a gap. So yeah, Leclerc is the threat to Lando, possibly. We have a small gap over here. Yeah, so Hamilton and Russell could potentially switch back again. We have closeness all throughout the midfield here, so all from Nico Hulkenberg, Yuki, Pierre Gasly, Lance, Lance, and Ocon. Things could still happen all throughout this area. And I expect Lawson, actually, now that he's on the page here firmly with his 4 points, I expect him to move up some more, but we'll see, because their car hasn't been the greatest. Other than that, yeah, we still have the poor Saubers at the back. Yeah, those are the close points. Cool. So let's take a look at the visuals of the championship so far, plus a recap. I think I'll start from Italy, where Max was still having a pretty good lead, and then that lead is closing up. But here we go, Texas, Mexico, it closes, Brazil, it opens back up again. So yeah, Max very firmly leading the pack. And we have Lando of the McLarens, we have Charles of the Ferraris, and our very closely matched Mercedes. Yeah, wow, Aston Martin's like right in the middle, and then everyone else. Here we go. Hey, that's it. That was our recap of the last 3 races, and now we get another 3 weeks off. Yeah, it's really been these really long breaks with triple headers. So yeah, we're gonna head into another triple header with the next one being Las Vegas, and I will see you at the end of the season. We'll replay the entire video of the whole season and see the final change-ups at that point. Please like if you like, subscribe, and share with your friends. That helps get more views. I really do that for, that's why I do it, is to see that other people want to see the numbers that I like to see, the visuals that I like to see, and I'm happy to share that. So yeah, that helps a lot, and see you next time.